The sound of tearing paper echoed across the bank. Every customer looked up. A cashier froze. A little girl gasped. And 34-year-old Daniel Carter watched $5 million fall to the floor, in pieces. For a moment, he didn't move. He simply stared at the shredded checks scattered across the polished marble tiles. Across the counter stood bank manager Victoria Reynolds, 48 years old. Perfect gray business suit, diamond necklace, impeccable makeup, and the cold confidence of someone who believed she could never be questioned. She dropped the last torn piece onto the counter. "We don't tolerate counterfeit checks in this bank." Daniel blinked. His voice remained calm. "You didn't even verify it." Victoria folded her arms. "I didn't need to. You walked in wearing work boots, an old jacket, and carrying a backpack." She looked him up and down. "People with $5 million checks don't look like you." The bank fell silent. Standing beside Daniel was his 8-year-old daughter, Grace. She wore a faded yellow hoodie, blue jeans, and held a small stuffed rabbit tightly against her chest. She looked at the torn paper, then at her father. "Dad, was that the hospital money?" Daniel slowly knelt beside her. He forced a smile. "We're going to be okay." But Grace could see the pain in his eyes. The customers whispered. One elderly woman quietly shook her head. A construction worker muttered, "She didn't even scan it." Another customer discreetly reached for his phone. Victoria noticed. No recording inside the bank. The customer lowered his phone. Nobody wanted an argument with the manager. Victoria pressed the security button beneath her desk. Within seconds, a security guard approached. Marcus Hill, 42 years old, former Marine. Calm, professional, he looked from Victoria to Daniel, then down at the shredded check. "What happened?" Victoria answered first. "I caught another scammer." Marcus didn't move. He had worked security for nearly 15 years. Something about Daniel didn't match the people who usually tried to commit fraud. He noticed Grace quietly standing beside her father, still holding the stuffed rabbit, still looking frightened. Daniel slowly picked up one piece of the torn check. "You destroyed private property." Victoria smiled. "I protected the bank." "No," Daniel replied quietly. "You protected your assumptions." Her smile disappeared. "My assumptions? You assumed my clothes told you my bank balance. You assumed my skin color told you whether I belonged here. You assumed my daughter deserved to watch her father be humiliated." The entire lobby became silent. Victoria laughed. "Oh, please, don't make this about race. This is about common sense." Daniel looked around the room. "No, it's about respect." Grace tugged gently on her father's sleeve. "Dad, can we just go?" Daniel looked at her. He could have argued. He could have shouted. Instead, he nodded. "All right." He placed every torn piece of the check carefully back onto the counter, then looked directly at Victoria. "I'll give you one last chance. Call your verification department. That's all I'm asking." Victoria didn't even hesitate. "No," Daniel sighed. "Then you've made a very expensive decision." Victoria smiled confidently. "I think I'll survive." Daniel took Grace's hand. They turned toward the exit. Halfway to the door, the bank's front entrance suddenly opened. A sharply dressed man in a navy suit walked inside, carrying a black leather briefcase. He stopped the moment he noticed the shredded check lying on the floor. His expression changed instantly. He looked at Daniel, then at Victoria. Finally, he quietly asked one question. "Who tore up that check?" The entire bank froze. The bank lobby became completely silent. The man in the navy suit slowly walked toward the counter. Every step echoed across the marble floor. He wasn't in a hurry, but there was something about his presence. Something that made even the employees stop what they were doing. He stopped beside Daniel, then looked down at the shredded check. His face tightened. He carefully picked up one torn piece. His eyes widened. He turned toward Victoria. "Did you do this?" Victoria straightened her jacket. "I did. It was clearly a fake." The man looked back at the check. You verified it? No. You called the issuing bank? No. You scanned the routing number? No. Victoria folded her arms. I don't need a machine to recognize a scam. The man stared at her for several seconds, then quietly replied, That's exactly why machines exist. Daniel gently squeezed Grace's hand. She looked up at him. Dad, who is he? Before Daniel could answer, the man smiled warmly. I'm Michael Bennett. He extended his hand. Corporate Risk and Compliance. Several employees immediately recognized the name. Whispers spread across the lobby. That's the regional compliance director. Why is he here? I thought he was visiting another branch. Victoria's confident smile faded just a little. Michael carefully placed every torn piece of the check onto the counter. Mr. Carter, do you still have the deposit envelope? Daniel nodded. He opened his backpack. Inside was a clear plastic document folder. He handed it over. Michael examined the paperwork. Every page had official seals. Certified documentation. Legal transfer records. He slowly nodded. This isn't an ordinary personal check. Victoria laughed nervously. So what? People fake documents all the time. Michael looked directly at her. True, but these aren't fake. The room fell silent again. Victoria tried to interrupt. I've managed this branch for 12 years. I know fraud when I see it. Michael calmly asked, Then why didn't you follow bank policy? She blinked. What? Our policy requires verification before refusing or destroying a negotiable financial instrument. He paused. You skipped every required step. The employees exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew he was right. Grace quietly looked at the shredded paper. Can they fix it? Daniel smiled gently. They can replace paper. It's trust that's harder to repair. Several customers lowered their eyes. Just then, a young teller slowly raised her hand. Her name tag read, Emily Ross. She spoke softly. Sir, I told Manager Reynolds we should verify the check first. Victoria quickly turned toward her. Emily. The young teller took a nervous breath. I did. I said we should contact the issuing institution before making any decision. Michael looked at Emily. Thank you. Then he looked back at Victoria. Did she? Victoria remained silent. That silence answered the question. Michael carefully unfolded another document from Daniel's folder. His eyes stopped on the final page. He immediately became serious. He looked at Daniel. You never mentioned. Daniel quietly interrupted. I didn't think I should have to. Michael nodded. You're right. You shouldn't. Victoria frowned. What is it? Michael slowly turned the page around. At the bottom was one signature. Just one. Neat, powerful, recognizable. Michael looked directly at Victoria. Do you recognize this signature? She glanced at it, then shrugged. No. Michael took a slow breath. You should. It's one of the most protected signatures in the entire banking industry. Victoria's face slowly lost its color. Customers leaned forward. Even the security guard stepped closer. Michael closed the folder, then looked at Daniel with respect. Mr. Carter, I believe it's time to call the person who signed this check. Daniel simply nodded. Go ahead. Michael picked up his phone, pressed a single contact, placed the call on speaker. After only one ring, a calm voice answered. Good morning, Michael. The entire bank froze. Michael smiled politely. Sir, I'm calling about Mr. Daniel Carter. There was a brief pause. Then the voice replied, Is Daniel there? Daniel answered calmly. Yes. The voice immediately changed. Daniel, I'm so sorry. It seems someone at the bank has made a very serious mistake. Victoria's heart began pounding. She still didn't know who she was listening to. The entire bank stood frozen. No one spoke. The calm voice continued through the phone. Daniel, first, I want to apologize. You should never have been treated this way. Daniel answered quietly. Thank you, sir. I'm just glad Grace didn't lose hope. The man paused. Is she with you? Daniel smiled at his daughter. She is. A gentle voice came through the speaker. "Hello, Grace." The little girl looked at the phone. Hi. "I heard you've been very brave today." She smiled shyly. "I'm trying. You don't have to be brave alone anymore." Grace looked at her father and squeezed his hand. Victoria could barely contain herself. Who is this?" Michael looked at her but said nothing. The man on the phone ignored the interruption. "Daniel, I was planning to surprise you next week, but I think everyone in that branch deserves to hear the truth today." Daniel nodded. "I agree." Michael placed the phone on the counter so everyone could hear. The voice continued. "My name is Jonathan Sterling." Several customers frowned. The name sounded familiar. Then one elderly customer gasped. "No, it can't be." The construction worker beside him whispered, "Who's Jonathan Sterling?" The elderly man replied, "The founder of Sterling National Financial Group, the man whose company owns hundreds of banks across the country." Several employees looked at one another. Victoria's breathing became heavier. Jonathan continued, 10 years ago, my daughter was involved in a terrible highway accident. Her car caught fire. There were dozens of people watching. But only one person ran into those flames. Every eye slowly turned toward Daniel. Jonathan's voice softened. That man was Daniel Carter. He pulled my daughter out seconds before the vehicle exploded. The lobby became completely silent. Grace looked up at her father. "Dad, you never told me that." Daniel smiled gently. "It wasn't something I did for recognition." Jonathan continued, "My daughter survived. She later became a doctor. She now saves lives every single day. If Daniel hadn't acted, I would have buried my only child." Several customers wiped away tears. Even Marcus, the security guard, looked emotional. Jonathan took a deep breath. "When Daniel refused every reward I offered, I created a scholarship in his name. But he still wouldn't accept any personal payment. So recently, when I learned Grace needed specialized medical treatment, I decided to do something he couldn't refuse. The $5 million certified check was placed into a protected family trust. It wasn't a gift. It was an investment in the future of the man who once saved mine." The room was speechless. Victoria slowly stepped backward. Her hands trembled. I didn't know." Jonathan's tone remained calm. "No, you didn't ask. You looked at his jacket. You looked at his boots. You made a decision. And then you destroyed property that didn't belong to you." Victoria lowered her head. For the first time in her career, she had no defense. Michael quietly opened another folder. "There's one more document." Daniel looked surprised. "I wasn't expecting that." Jonathan chuckled softly. "I thought I'd keep at least one surprise." Michael unfolded the papers. His eyes widened. He looked at Daniel, then at Victoria. Finally, he quietly said, "This changes everything." Victoria swallowed hard. "What is it?" Michael looked directly into her eyes. "Mr. Carter isn't here just to deposit a check. He was scheduled to sign another agreement today." Every customer leaned forward. "What agreement?" someone whispered. Michael slowly turned the final page around. At the top, in bold letters, was the title, Community Banking Partnership Initiative. Daniel looked down at the document. Then back at Michael. "I guess we should explain." Michael nodded. "Yes, I think it's time everyone learns why Jonathan Sterling chose Daniel Carter." The bank lobby was so quiet that the air conditioning was the only sound anyone could hear. Michael Bennett slowly placed the agreement on the counter. Every employee leaned forward. Victoria Reynolds couldn't take her eyes off the document. "What partnership?" she whispered. Michael looked around the lobby before answering. "This morning, Daniel Carter wasn't just coming here to deposit a certified check. He was coming to sign an agreement that would change this branch forever." The customers exchanged confused looks. Michael continued. "Over the last 3 years, Sterling National Financial Group has been searching for someone to lead a new community banking initiative, a program designed to help working families, veterans, and single parents qualify for fair loans, financial education, and small business funding. We interviewed dozens of executives, bank presidents, regional directors, Financial consultants. He smiled. And none of them were chosen. Victoria frowned. Why? Michael looked at Daniel. Because none of them understood the people we wanted to serve. Jonathan Sterling's voice came through the speaker again. I didn't choose Daniel because he's wealthy. I chose him because he understands struggle. He knows what it's like to work 2 jobs. He knows what it's like to raise a child alone. He knows what it's like to be judged before anyone knows his story. Daniel looked down quietly. Grace reached over and held his hand. One of the customers spoke up. You're saying he was supposed to lead this program? Michael nodded. Not just lead it. He helped design it. For the last 18 months, Daniel has volunteered as an advisor, meeting with families who had been unfairly denied financial opportunities. He never asked for recognition. He only asked one question: how can we make the system fairer? Several employees looked at Daniel with admiration. The man they had mistaken for a scammer had been helping reshape the future of the bank. Victoria's voice shook. I've spent 12 years managing this branch. I've broken sales records. I've won leadership awards. Michael answered calmly. And today, you ignored every policy your awards were supposed to represent. You judged a customer by his appearance. You destroyed a certified financial instrument without verification. You embarrassed a child. He looked at Grace. And that's something no award can erase. Victoria closed her eyes. Tears began to form. Just then, Emily Ross, the young teller who had tried to stop Victoria earlier, stepped forward. She looked nervous. Mr. Bennett, may I say something? Of course. Emily took a deep breath. When Mr. Carter walked in, I noticed Grace holding hospital paperwork. I wanted to help. But I let my manager make the decision. She turned to Daniel. I'm sorry, I should have spoken up louder. Daniel smiled kindly. Courage grows. The important thing is, you found yours before it was too late. Emily wiped away a tear. Michael picked up the agreement again. Mr. Carter, despite everything that happened today, the offer still stands. I'd be honored if you'd sign it. Daniel looked at the papers, then at Grace, then around the lobby. Everyone waited for his answer. He slowly closed the folder. I'm not ready. The room gasped. Michael looked surprised. What do you mean? Daniel took a slow breath. If this branch is going to help families, it has to earn their trust first. And trust can't be rebuilt with a signature. It has to be rebuilt with actions. No one spoke. Every word carried weight. Jonathan Sterling smiled through the speaker. That's exactly why I chose you. He paused. Daniel, I have one final request. Daniel nodded. I'm listening. I'd like you to tell everyone in that lobby what your father taught you before he passed away. Daniel's expression softened. He looked at Grace, then at every employee. He took a deep breath. The lesson he was about to share would change the branch more than any $5 million check ever could. The bank lobby remained silent. Daniel looked down at Grace. She smiled at him. He gently squeezed her hand. Then he looked around the room. My father worked as a city bus mechanic for 36 years. He never wore an expensive suit. He never owned a luxury car. But before every shift, he told me the same thing. Daniel paused. Son, never let someone else's opinion decide your value. Because the world will see your clothes before it sees your character. Your job is to make sure your character stays stronger than their assumptions. The room became completely still. Several customers lowered their heads. Even employees behind the counters stopped pretending to work. Daniel continued. When Grace's mother passed away, I promised my daughter something. I promised her that no matter how difficult life became, we would never answer cruelty with cruelty. Grace looked up proudly. You always keep your promises. Daniel smiled. I try. Jonathan Sterling spoke through the phone. Daniel, that's exactly why I trust you. Money can build buildings, but character builds communities. Michael Bennett stepped forward. Mr. Carter, If you won't sign today, when will you? Daniel looked around the lobby. He pointed toward the employees. I'll sign after this branch proves that today wasn't just an apology. I want every employee trained to recognize unconscious bias. I want every customer treated with dignity. I want people wearing work boots to receive the same respect as people wearing tailored suits. And I want no child to ever watch a parent be judged because of how they look. The employees quietly nodded. Even customers applauded. Victoria Reynolds slowly stepped away from the manager's office. She removed her manager's name badge. She placed it on the counter. Then she walked toward Daniel. Tears filled her eyes. I spent years believing experience made me a good leader. But today, I learned that authority without humility becomes arrogance. She looked at Grace. I'm deeply sorry for what I took from you today. Grace hesitated. Then quietly asked, will you treat the next little girl better? Victoria's voice broke. Yes, I will. Michael turned toward the staff. Effective immediately, this incident will be reviewed under the bank's conduct and ethics policies. We will also launch mandatory customer respect and bias awareness training across every branch in this region. He looked at the employees. This isn't about protecting the bank's reputation. It's about earning the public's trust. Daniel picked up the folder. Then, something unexpected happened. Instead of leaving, he walked back to the counter. He took out a pen. I said I wasn't ready to sign. He smiled. I didn't say never. The room laughed softly. Daniel signed the Community Banking Partnership Agreement. Applause filled the lobby. Even customers who had entered only to make deposits found themselves clapping. 6 months later, the same bank looked completely different. A large sign near the entrance read, every customer, every story, every time. Employees greeted customers by name. Financial workshops for single parents, veterans, and first-time business owners were held every weekend. Emily Ross had been promoted to assistant branch manager after becoming known for treating every customer with patience and respect. As for Victoria, she completed extensive leadership and ethics training before returning in a non-management role at another branch, where she worked to rebuild trust through her actions. She no longer believed respect should be based on appearance. She earned it one customer at a time. One sunny afternoon, Grace smiled as she walked into the bank with her father. This time, no one stared. No one judged. A young teller greeted them warmly. Welcome back, Mr. Carter. It's good to see you again. Grace whispered, Dad, it feels different. Daniel smiled. It is, because real change doesn't begin when someone writes a check. It begins when people change the way they see each other. He looked around the lobby. The place where a $5 million check had once been torn into pieces had become a place where dignity was never torn apart again. This is an original fictional story created for entertainment and reflection. Its message is simple. Never judge a person's worth by their appearance. Respect should be given before assumptions are made. And sometimes, the most valuable thing in a bank isn't the money. It's the character of the people serving behind the counter. If this story inspired you, comment, respect,